Welcome to Up on Game presents Taylor Scouting. Coach Randy Taylor is bringing his 40-plus years of knowledge to you. This is Taylor Scouting. And now, here's Coach Randy Taylor.
Welcome to Taylor Scouting Podcast. We are here. We're going to talk with Don Diamont, a dad, an actor, and a great overall person himself. So you guys know what Taylor Scouting Podcast is. We talk about football, we talk about college football recruiting, we talk about high school football, everything relating to football. And it's a different show because we're going to have on unique guests that have different perspectives about college football or about recruiting. My background, 40 plus years in college football at UCLA, Minnesota, Illinois, and UNLV. I've been an evaluator and a recruiting coordinator for years. We just appreciate you coming on and being on our show with Up on Game Presents is where you're getting this podcast. And you can get all of these podcasts at iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And one thing we ask you to do is rate and review us and follow us on all our social platforms by searching Up on Game Network. You can also search R. Taylor FB Scout and follow me on Twitter. And we are ready to get rolling with one of the guys I've really enjoyed getting to know. Don Diamont is Bill Spencer on Bold and the Beautiful, which my wife and I have been watching for I don't know how long. And Don is also, more importantly, he's a father, he's a husband, family man, and is really involved in college recruiting because of his family, his children. And that's probably your most important role, isn't it, Don?
I would say so. In fact, there are career choices that I made for that exact reason. So I could really be in town and present as my kids were growing up and so involved in sports. I didn't want to miss any of that.
Right.
So thankfully, I had a job in television that kept me right here in Los Angeles, and I could have a relatively normal life and be present at all their practices and, work out with them and follow them on their journey and walk hand in hand with them, as did my wife through their athletic pursuits.
Yeah, we'll talk about each one of these athletes, and it's a great list. It's an impressive group of kids you have off the field as well, because I've gotten to know all of them, I think. And but so let's start with Xander Diamont, right? Xander is your oldest and played at Indiana. So go back and remember the recruiting process of those days. How long ago was that?
Wow. I guess Alexander, let me look over it. I think he graduated in 16. I believe, or maybe finished in 16 and graduated in 17, something like that.
And he was at Indiana.
What's that?
He was at Indiana, right? Quarterback?
He played quarterback at Indiana. In fact, he owns the record for the longest rushing touchdown by a quarterback in Indiana history. And he did that against defending national champion Ohio State. So that was about 71 yards. So that was 79 yards.
79 yards.
So that was pretty impressive.
So think about what do you remember about his recruiting process?
Well, in Alexander's case, he was getting a significant amount of looks, but not really the ones that he was hoping for and looking for, the Power Fives, really because he was undersized. It wasn't about his arm strength. It wasn't obviously about his speed. He was just undersized. When he ended up, he was supposed to redshirt his freshman year, and due to injury and a couple of transfers, he ends up starting. and had 5 days to get ready for Michigan State, who I believe was the #1 ranked defense in the country at the time, and he was about maybe 160 pounds. But he always played with a linebacker mentality, and just a tough as nails kid. But in his recruiting process, again, being undersized can be a challenge. And he was getting looked, and he was getting some offers, but again, not the Power Fives that he was hoping for. And it's funny, Randy, as you said, I've known you a long time, and there are other relationships that we built over the years as well. And Alexander went to a lot of camps along the way, including Steve Clarkson's camp and his high school coach Angelo Gasca, who had sent quite a few quarterbacks to D1 schools. But along the way, he also worked with Joe Dickinson, and Joe is a highly regarded quarterback coach. And Angelo actually called Joe and said, "Hey, you know how good Alexander is, and here's his film. Anybody you can think of calling to help, get maybe the look that he's hoping for." And Joe got involved, and he sent Alexander's footage to Seth Luttrell. And Seth Luttrell, who at that time, Seth was the OC at Indiana, and that really got that ball rolling. Seth was impressed. We flew to Indiana to take a look around and meet the coaches, meet Kevin Wilson, see how he felt about going to the Midwest. But that relationship got that ball rolling. And then the rest was up to Alexander, and he performed incredibly well at the one-day camp that they wanted him to come to before finally pulling the trigger. He killed it and ended up with an offer from a Power 5 school, not just a Power 5 school, but a Big Ten school, even at his size. And he proved to be a tremendous asset to that team during his time at Indiana, and was an incredible fan favorite. But in this instance, as far as the recruiting process is called, he was in the normal recruiting process. But in that case, a relationship that we had nurtured along the way with Joe Dickinson paid off.
What was his decision? How did he decide? I'm sure he had more than Indiana. Sometimes it's about something other than the Big Ten or something else. Was it really the level of play that he wanted to be at?
It was the level of play he wanted to be at. But visiting IU, we got there in the evening. We drove straight to the stadium. It was, uplit, and the flags were blowing, and it's a pretty majestic stadium.
Yeah, it's nice.
And we walked the campus that evening. We walked through Bloomington that evening and experienced it during the day as well, the following day. And he really fell in love with the campus, not just from a football perspective. Right. The facilities were terrific, but not what they are now. They've redone them since. Yeah. But it was really Bloomington and the campus. It's really important for kids, in my opinion. I think most people would agree with me. You can't just make a decision based on a coaching staff or just based on a program, because as we see every year, yeah, there are firings and there are hirings, and the coach that recruits you and blows all the smoke up your ass ends up leaving before you ever get. In fact, that happened with Seth, who I love dearly, and we've kept our relationship with Seth over the years because we just feel such affection for him. Yeah. But sure enough, Seth left to go be the OC at UNC, and Seth, as an OC, was heavily involved in his recruiting. So it's really important that kids think about, where do I want to be, in school for 4 years? Where do I want to get my degree from? If all the smoke blown up my ass and it ends up not happening for me, I'm not the starter. I'm not the one. I'm not the two. Maybe I end up the three. Maybe I get injured. Who knows? Anything can happen. Where do you want to go to school? Where do you want to spend your 4 years or 5 years potentially?
Yeah. Well, these days now, your next son, we'll try to get this in order. Luca chose Duke and went there as a quarterback, and you can tell a little bit of his story because he's playing wide receiver now. But now comes in, and we'll talk more about the transfer portal. But how is Luca's recruiting story a little different than?
Well, Luca started as a freshman at Venice, and he followed in his brother's footsteps. Alexander likes to remind all of them that he set the table.
Yeah.
For them. And Luca's very prideful that he broke all of his brother's records too. He likes that. But he was heavily recruited. Luca had offer. We met with Nick Saban. He had offers from, and by the way, that's after having a non-football related injury that cost him his entire sophomore season. And he had a ton of offers. Alabama, Mississippi State, Washington State. He had a lot of offers. And in his case, he's a very good student. He's a very methodical kid, a very thoughtful kid. And we were hoping that he would choose Duke for a lot of the reasons that I just described. You don't know what's going to happen football-wise, but you have an opportunity to get to play football and get a degree from Duke University. As parents, that's what we were hoping for. And we tried for the most part. I think we did a pretty good job of leaving that up to him. We obviously gave our opinion, but he chose Duke. In terms of his recruiting, his success spoke for itself. His ability spoke for itself. A lot of coaches, a lot of recruiters come through Venice. He had to throw for coaches and do the dog and pony show and perform well. And as I said, he just got a lot of offers. We went to Alabama on a recruiting trip, sat down with Coach Saban in his office. That was a big thrill.
Yeah.
His experience was a bit different than his brother's, than Alexander's.
Luca now is, though, in the age, he's kind of in the end of his career is, what is he
not really. No, he'd be a redshirt junior this year.
Yeah.
But there's the COVID year.
The portal kind of is coming in now,
right?
A little bit. And so that's changed too, where that decision of choosing Duke, and I know you, and I know that you wouldn't be one of those guys that wants his son transferring just to get better, shot at.
No, the opposite. In fact, no, I would not. Right. And sure enough, Luca had an elbow injury that derailed him really be able to compete the way that he wanted to at quarterback, and he moved to receiver. And then halfway through the season last year, he blew out his ACL, and he's rehabbing now. So everything that I talked about previously in terms of, and Coach Cutt was fired. We love Coach Cutt, by the way.
Yeah.
And we'll always be grateful to him for offering Luca. Sure enough, Coach Cutt ends up being fired. There's a new staff. So we had that experience. He had an injury that got in his way. We had that experience. But what can't be taken away is that he's at Duke University, and he's going to continue to grind through his rehab and his football pursuits. But he's, in fact, it was a 4.0 last semester, and he's having a tremendous success as a student athlete at Duke University, and we're thrilled.
That's the part. That's the amateurism that we all love, and so I look forward to working for Luca someday.
You and me both, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
I was going to say, in terms of the portal, You say, it is just very different now. And I guess it really depends on which side of the coin you're on, right? If you're the kid who wants an opportunity to transfer, maybe you're the two, maybe you're a Joe Burrow. Who knows? You're a guy who just feels like I'm not getting the opportunity that I deserve, that my talent warrants. And these guys aren't prisoners anymore. So they can transfer and find another opportunity, whatever their position may be. And there are no guarantees when they transfer either. The portal doesn't hold a guarantee for you, but it does open a door that wasn't there previously. So that's great for the kid who wants to hit the portal. The other side of that coin is there are kids at programs that feel justifiably that they're paying their dues and they're putting in the work and their time is coming. Well, then maybe a kid just transfers in, a senior or fifth year, who knows, a junior, senior, but maybe you're that sophomore, that freshman that put in a lot of work, or that sophomore, and now you feel like it's your time and you just get pushed down the ladder. So that's that's another side of it.
Yeah, and that's when you have to make that decision, and not saying that the transfer portal is a bad thing, because there are some good things to it, but you have to decide, like Luka and your family, is that Duke education, that Duke degree is something that you can't pass on.
No, he holds that dear. Not everybody feels that way, but as parents, we do, and Luka feels the same way. And he's really just overall loving his experience at Duke University, Duke football, and Duke University.
I'm sure he is. He's a good-looking kid, a smart kid, and I really liked him the times I spent with him, even over early years at Venice High School when I met him all those years ago.
He's such a good kid, and Randy, I just really can't stress enough that my mom used to say, "Man plans and God laughs," right? So you really want to put yourself in the best position, not just football wise or whatever sport you play. Right. Sports don't hold a guarantee, So put yourself in the best position to be successful in life, not just in your sport, but in life. And those things should really be a consideration as parents and kids are going through the recruiting process.
Yeah. And so now we come up to, was Anton next or Davis?
Well, they're twins, but
okay.
But Anton really ended up being next because Davis had an injury that kept him from his junior year, and then COVID happened his senior year. In Anton's case, it's amazing with Anton. He transferred from a small private school, and a bit of a screw up happened in that process, and he ends up having to sit out 6 games his junior year. So he played 4 actual games of real high school football. He transferred to Calabasas at that time, and Calabasas was a big powerhouse out here. So he played 4 real games for Calabasas. The playoff game being against St. John Bosco. St. John Bosco saw him play, and he shut down their lineman that he was up against. So again, because of relationship, it was Steve Clarkson advised that there might be an opportunity for him to move to Bosco. And we looked into that, and sure enough, his senior year, he ended up transferring to Bosco. Then he had an injury, and that got in his way in his senior year. And COVID got in the way of his recruiting big time. But even with all of that, his 4 games of playing high school football got him, I don't know what he had, like 5 offers, UNLV being among them. And,
well, he passed
the Coach Arroyo. Thank you, Coach Arroyo.
Yeah, Coach Arroyo. Yeah.
And he's enjoying his experience.
Good. And Anton passed the eye test. That's for sure.
He's a big boy.
Yeah, he's a big boy, and
6'6", 300 at the moment.
yeah, yeah. So, and could bend his knees and had some mobility and those kind of things. And so,
and a hard worker and a really fine, again, Dean's List,
yeah,
4.0, Dean's List, fine student, fine athlete, same conversation with him.
yeah.
Where do you want to go to school? Where do you want to get a degree? You have to be happy here because you don't know what happens football wise.
Yeah.
So I can't emphasize that enough to parents and recruits.
Yeah, and Las Vegas is a unique place, and so that has its. I lived there. I was on that staff a couple of years and loved living there because the people are unbelievable there.
Well, I think since your time there, they have about $60 million football facility now. And
I know.
It's magnificent.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, that's a beautiful place.
Yeah, so he's happy. He's happy.
So Davis now is the basketball player, the twin.
Yeah, Davis really got the most screwed with his injury and then the COVID situation. Recruiting was just really rough in his case.
Right.
And again, one of the coaches that he trained with, Julius, made Ole Miss aware, Coach Davis, aware of our Davis.
Right.
And we went on a recruiting trip there, and so now he's playing basketball at Ole Miss.
That's great. How is from your point of view, with now the transfer portal, because of the culture and the locker room, your boys must be saying, hey, this is this, the culture is this, or the new transfers have done this. How is your feeling from the dad of a player on the transfer portal with kids coming in?
Well, I think there's no doubt that it's made it really more of a business and given players a voice and given them, everything has a yin and a yang. So a certain element of the opportunities created by the portal, I think in some circumstance can create an adversarial relationship with the coaching staff, because a kid feels like, I don't like the way you're treating me. I don't like my playing time. I don't like the way you're talking to me. And I don't have to necessarily show you the respect that you deserve, because I can just leave.
Yeah.
And I think it can create a problem in a locker room for sure. With your star or a couple of your stars, or just a couple of guys that are disgruntled,
right.
And that the behavior that ensues hurts a program, hurts a locker room.
Right. Have you guys talked about specific transfers that have come in and how they fit? Do you hear any of that from them?
I do. It's nothing I would, just openly discuss, but sure. Again, to the positive and to the negative, to both. Like I said, man, everything you could have a guy transferring in the portal who's just a great all-around person, adds something athletically, adds something in his personality, and is great for a locker room. And you can have the exact opposite happen. Kid transfers in, and maybe there's another kid who's resentful that kid transferred in, and it creates a problem. So you just don't, you just don't know. You just, like everything else, there's no perfect scenario. You have the fact, and everybody talks about it. It's not like it's a secret. The fact is that it is a college football and college basketball, and it's multi-billion-dollar industry.
Right.
And you can call it amateurism, but I think that the way that it was panning out over time, because there's so much money involved with the name, image, and likeness. Kids getting punished by the NCAA for signing some autographs. Right? It's absurd. So their coach is getting paid $5, $6, $7 million a year and the school's making billions of dollars.
Right.
And there's no health insurance, there's no long-term health care for these guys. They can use their number and their name and their likeness and make millions of dollars on these players, and they would get nothing. So you want to call it amateurism? I suppose you could call it being an indentured servitude. Considering the insane amounts of money that you're talking about nowadays.
So I'm going to put you in the plus category on the NIL.
Yeah, again, nothing's perfect.
Right.
Nothing's perfect. But when you look at a kid with an opportunity based on his hard work, his God-given talent, the hard work he puts in to maximize his talent, whatever socioeconomic environment that they come from, and given that you're one injury away from the ending of your career, or at least your value being diminished, if you're one of those kids that has an opportunity to make some money while you're in college, in some cases a significant amount of money, again, it's really hard to refer to it as amateurism anymore, with the insane amounts of money, the billions of dollars that are involved. So I guess so. Listen, I think Alexander would have certainly made money.
Yes.
When he was at Indiana, a cigar picture of him after they beat Purdue. That cigar picture of him in the locker room with a lit cigar, holding the old oaken bucket. That picture went viral. I have no doubt that with Alexander as such a fan favorite at IU, that he would have made some decent money in his time.
He would have Fuente would be looking for him as a Arturo Fuente Cigars would be one of his sponsors. Hey, how have the schools communicated with you as a parent about the transfer portal and about NIL? And you don't have to go into details, but that's got to be something that's really important.
Well, I guess there's been some information put out about it, but not really a significant.
It's more direct with
not really addressed in a significant way. What's that?
It's more direct with the athlete themselves. Sure. of how it works, and I would assume, and you can tell me, they came home and said, well, we had a team meeting and they told us about the portal and about how NIL would be set up and how all of that would be handled within.
Honestly, Randy, I'm not really sure that there's been a meeting entirely based on NIL and the transfer portal, and I don't know that that's been directly addressed.
Yeah, being in those locker rooms, I would hope that they have in some way said, well, maybe like Deion Sanders, if you're not good enough, you can transfer. We're going to get somebody else. Or we're going to, Deion.
I don't think you need a coach to say that. I think, that's what's so funny. People made such a thing out of that.
Yeah.
Well, duh. I mean, didn't need that to be articulated by him. Nothing has changed in that. We're going to put the best product on the field that we can put on to win, because this game is about winning and advancing my career. And I think he's made that perfectly clear, but that should be painfully obvious. Well before NIL and well before the transfer portal, coaches are looking to make moves to advance their career, taking me all the way back to what I said before. If you think that a coaching staff is necessarily going to be there for your whole time there, or even the guy who is presently recruiting you, the coach who's telling you what a star you're going to be for his program, that guy could be gone before you're even on the campus. And that's a fact.
We know they move fast. How do you handle the travel and the organization football season is one thing. You got basketball over here, but football season, how do you get to those events, those games?
We just do. We get on the plane and we go. We try to split our time. We have to split between games. Obviously, we have to be at this Duke game. We have to be at this UNLV game. And sometimes one's on a Friday night, one's on a Saturday, and we can actually go to both. We can be at the UNLV game, get to the airport on a red eye, and get to the Duke game, or vice versa. It's easier when it's a Duke a Friday, happens to be a Friday night game, and we can get to the West Coast for an evening for a UNLV game. But we've done that more than once.
Those frequent flyer miles are piling up.
Yeah, but we love being there. We want to be present. We love being there for our kids and being present, and them knowing how much we love them and how much we appreciate the work that they put in to accomplish what they've accomplished. So it doesn't last forever, and we want to be as involved as we can possibly be.
Hey, so last thing is just advice to a parent. Is there anything that you have learned through all of this that you would say to the Venice kids that's going to be recruited next, or whoever it might be?
Well, kind of what I've covered. I wouldn't put it should be driven by your kid. The pursuit to play on the next level should really be a desire of your child, and not something that you're stressing your kid about. Let that come from the kid, and support him out, in every way that you can, if that's a dream that they want to pursue. Then, as I've already articulated, let's understand that every recruiter is going to be, or head coach is going to be blowing that same smoke to you and the other kids that they're recruiting at your exact same position.
Right.
What they're telling your kid, because maybe your kid's going to say no, they're saying to the next kid and the next kid. Right. So don't get caught up in the hype in that regard. Really be methodical about your decision. You don't know if the coaching staff is going to be there. You don't know if your child's health, if there won't be an injury consideration, an injury issue. So if you have the luxury of having choices, and your kid is a fairly heavily recruited kid, really think about, as parents, and especially obviously the kid, do I want to spend 4 years here, 5 years here? As a university, is this where I want to be? If my football dreams aren't working out the way that I'd hope for any number of reasons, another kid's better than you are, or at least the coaches perceive him as being better than you are, or there's an injury, where do you want to be going to school? Right. Where do you want to get a degree from? Where do you want to spend your time? That's a huge factor. I think the most important factor.
I appreciate that. I'm with you on that. Pick the school. Don, I really appreciate you coming on, and I know you got a lot going on, but thanks, Don Diamont. Appreciate you being on, and I'm going to keep track of those kids, and like always, make sure I know where Anton and Luca and Davis are, and keep track of you too as much as I can. Thanks for being on with me.
Who are you kidding? You record The Bold and the Beautiful. You're watching every day.
I do. There's no question I do. I've got a bone to pick with you about what Bill Spencer's doing.
Well, just hang on there. Just hang in there.
Let's see. Wait, it started already. I better get over.
Yeah, you better get off. All right. Good talking to you, Randy. Take care.
Appreciate you, brother.
All right. Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Hey, folks, Taylor Scouting is going to do something here coming up. It's called a women's clinic. And this is my title. We're not going to go out and do a clinic, but we're going to do an event or a podcast in a couple of weeks where we want to get questions from the women, the mom, the sisters, the girlfriends, the support system, whoever it might be. If you guys that are watching could send in questions to me at either Twitter, at R Taylor FB Scout, you can direct message or follow me and I'll get back to you. On Facebook to Coach Randy Taylor, LinkedIn, Coach Randy Taylor, Instagram, Coach Taylor, always evaluating. Please send in some questions. We'll answer everything about what women and girls need to know about football and football recruiting. And we think it'll be a great show, and we look forward to engaging with all of you women. So appreciate it. As always, make sure you tune in to Taylor Scouting and tune in to Up on Game Presents on the Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio app, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. Please rate and review us. Follow us again on social platforms by searching Up on Game Network. And for me, it's R. Taylor FB Scout. We appreciate you being with us and look forward to seeing you next week.